Shalom, guys. And Hanukkah is right around the corner, and a lot of Jews will be celebrating this day, but not many Christians. Now, what we're going to do in today's video is we're going to go over what is Hanukkah and why I believe a lot of Christians today should celebrate it. So, why you should celebrate Hanukkah to all of my Christian friends. Now, first, let us talk about what is Hanukkah actually, because a lot of people seem to think that it is the Jewish Christmas, that somehow the Jews ripped off Christians for having a fun holiday in the wintertime, and the Jews wanted to have it also. So, the books of 1st and 2nd Maccabees are about the Maccabean Revolt, a Jewish uprising in the 2nd century BCE against the Greek Empire, led by the priest Matthias and his sons. Now, 1st Maccabees is a historical chronicle of the military and political struggle, while 2nd Maccabees is more of a dramatic and theological account that emphasizes martyrdom. Now, both books detail the fight to preserve Jewish religion and law, and the rededication of the temple is a central event commemorated by the holiday of Hanukkah. Now, what does Hanukkah mean here? So the Strong's number is H2598, and it literally just means to dedicate or concentration of it. And we see this throughout the Old Testament also. So it appears within the Tanakh or the Old Testament in Numbers chapter 7, verse 10, 11, 84, and 88. Second Chronicles chapter 7, verse 9. Nehemiah chapter 12, verse 27. And Psalms chapter 30, verse 1. Now, what I think will surprise a lot of my Christian friends is Hanukkah, the festival itself that we celebrate, is actually in the Gospel of John. It can be found in John chapter 10, verse 22 to 23. And this is what it says. It says, at that time, the festival of the dedication took place in Jerusalem. It was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple area in Solomon's colonnade. Now, that right there, the term for dedication is actually the word for Hanukkah. It is within the Greek translation, and it appears only once. If you look at the original Greek interlinear text right there, that's where it is used. Now, here in 1st and 2nd Maccabees, I have both the verses for you guys. It talks about specifically what was going on. Now, 1st Maccabees chapter 4, verse 36 to 37 says this. Then said Judas and his brothers, quote, behold, our enemies are crushed. Let us go up and to cleanse and the sanctuary and dedicate it. So all the army assembled and they went up to Mount Zion. And then we see this in 2nd Maccabees chapter 10, verse 5, where it says, they rededicated the temple on the 25th day of the month of Kislev, the same day of the same month on which the temple had been desecrated by the Gentiles. Now, if you are a Catholic or an Orthodox, you would have 1st and 2nd Maccabees within your scriptures. The Protestant Bible does not use 1st and 2nd Maccabees. The Protestants don't acknowledge the apocryphal writings, but the Catholics and Orthodox do. So no matter what, you are going to have the Gospel of John there, where you can go back and look at John chapter 10, verse 22 and 23. And if you are Catholic, or if you have a Catholic or Orthodox Bible with you, you can look up 1st Maccabees and 2nd Maccabees, specifically 1st Maccabees chapter 4, verse 36 to 37, and 2nd Maccabees chapter 10, verse 5, to see that, yes, this event of Hanukkah is biblical and it has actually happened. Now, what a lot of people might not know is Hanukkah was prophesied within the book of Daniel. Now, a lot of scholars agree on this. It's pretty much unanimous, and not just on the Christian side of things, but also on the Jewish side of things. So both Christian and Jewish scholars acknowledge Daniel chapter 8 and Daniel chapter 11, pointing to what happened, basically the Maccabean revolt, resulting into Hanukkah. So in Daniel chapter 8, this chapter predicts a, quote, little horn that will emerge and desecrate the temple. Now, the phrase, quote, at the appointed time of the end, end quote, and the desecration of the sanctuary are seen by many scholars as directly referring to Antiochus IV. He was the Greek ruler who wanted to annihilate the Jews. Now, Daniel chapter 11, this chapter provides a detailed political history of the conflicts between the Seleucid and the Ptolemaic dynasties that followed Alexander the Great's empire. It describes the rise of the quote, king of the north, who eventually becomes the oppressor Antiochus IV, and his invasion of the land of Israel. The prophecies in this chapter describe the historical events leading up to the Maccabean revolts. And again, guys, a lot of Christian and Jewish scholars all unanimously agree on this. Now, why is Hanukkah 8 days long? All right. Now, we almost have two answers to this. So, within Second Maccabees, chapter 10, verse 6, it explains why. So it says the happy celebration lasted 8 days, like the festival of shelters or Sukkot. And the people remembered how only a short time before they had spent the festival of shelters, Sukkot, wandering like wild animals in the mountains and living in caves. Now, that is the explanation from Second Maccabees chapter 10, verse 6. We also have from the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, Shabbat 21b, which says, when the Greeks entered the temple, they defiled all the oils, and when the Hasmoneans prevailed and defeated them, they searched and found only one cruse of oil, which lay in the seal of the Kohen Gadol. It contained only enough oil to light for one day, yet a miracle happened and they used it to light it for 8 days. This is the common explanation that you will most likely hear among Jews today who still celebrate Hanukkah. I'm not saying that it's wrong in any way, shape, or form, but another explanation of Second Maccabees also tells us most likely why they celebrated it for 8 days to coincide with the Feast of Sukkot or Feast of Tabernacles. Now, one of the traditions that a lot of people do within Hanukkah is they light a thing called a Hanukkah. A Hanukkah looks like a menorah, but it is not a menorah. Menorah is one single stalk with three branches on each side. A Hanukkah has one branch in the middle with four on each side, so a total of nine. Now, the middle candle is called the shamash, meaning to serve or the serving candle. The Hebrew word is Strong's 8120, if you want to look it up. The shamash is also called the servant candle. Now, when we look at the whole lighting ceremony, we hold the candle, the shamash, and we say Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidishanu b'tzmotav v'tzivanu lehadek neshel Hanukkah, which is basically praising God for this day, for us coming to this day for Hanukkah. And what we do with the shamash is we go from um, right to left, because that's how we would read Hebrew. So we go from right to left, and we light the candle. So the shamash here is in the higher or the heavenly place. Comparison is John 17:5, 1 John 1:2, and John chapter 1, verse 1 through 18. Then the shamash descends down to be with the other candles, John 6:38, Ephesians 4:9, John 3:13, and 1 Thessalonians 4:16. The shamash gives light to the other candles, John 8:12, 2 Corinthians 4:6, Luke 1:79, and Psalms 119, 105. And after lighting, the shamash ascends up above high to from the other candles. We see this in Acts chapter 1, verse 9 to 11, Luke 24:50 to 51, Mark 16:19, and 1 Peter 3:22. Now, from all these verses here, we can see the comparison to Yeshua to the Hanukkah that's here, which I think is one of the most beautiful imageries that we see during Hanukkah. Now, Hanukkah with gift giving. Now, it's a lot of people have accused people who celebrate Hanukkah for giving gifts as copying or ripping off other people who celebrate Christmas, because Christmas gives gifts and Hanukkah gives gifts. They must be ripping it off whatsoever, right? Now, that's not necessarily true. So, Hanukkah gelt, the money that you see, the little gold coins, the age-old custom mentioned in the Talmud was to give gelt or money to children. Now, this practice was associated with teaching charity or zadacha, and is also linked to the Maccabees coining their own money as a sign of the independence. Now, if we go to the book of Esther, referring to the Feast of Purim, because essentially Purim is a rabbinic holiday. It was invented. And again, there's nothing wrong with it, but it is not a biblical commanded holiday that we see within the Torah itself. It was just a rabbinic holiday, but Hanukkah is the same exact thing. What Purim is, Hanukkah is also. So in Esther chapter 19, we see this. This is why rural Jews, those living in villages, observe the 14th of the month of Adar as a day of joy, feasting, a day for giving presents to each other. So we see here in the book of Esther that what people would do is they would be joy, they would be feasting together, and they would be giving each other presents. We see this because it is a joyful celebration. The Jewish people were not eliminated during the Feast of Purim. The people were saved. And the same thing can be said for Hanukkah. The Jewish people were not destroyed, they were saved. So Hanukkah is a time of joy, feasting, and giving presents to others. So when other people bring up that Hanukkah is just ripping off Christmas, and just because people give gifts on Christmas and you also give gifts on Hanukkah, somehow Hanukkah is ripping off Christmas, I would just disagree. Now, why should Christians celebrate Hanukkah? Now, as we can see right here through the chart that I made, we see that the Messiah was promised to come to the people. And this is what Jews believe now. One of the 13 principles that the Rambam even made to be Jewish is you have to believe that there is going to be a Messiah who will come. That this Messiah will come through a genealogy. We see him coming from Adam, from Noah, to Shem, from Abraham, to Isaac, Jacob, Judah, Jesse, David, and then Zerubbabel, right? And these are all the verses that hint toward this idea that the Messiah figure would come through these lines of people. And the problem is, if Purim never happened, or if Hanukkah never happened, and the Jewish people were eliminated, we would have the lines from these people gone. And it would make God a liar. Because if the Messiah was supposed to come through the very last line of Zerubbabel that is mentioned in Haggai chapter 2, verse 23, if all of those lines of the children were dead, it would be impossible for the Messiah to come through that line, thus proving God to be a liar. But God preserved these people so that the Messiah could come through the Jewish people. So we should celebrate this because the Messiah has come. It's the preservation of the line of people that are here so that Yeshua, the Messiah, can come. Here we have examples of God saving the life of his people. We have Moses in Exodus chapter 2, verse 10, Esther in Esther chapter 4, verse 16, and chapter 8, verse 15 to 17. We even have David. David's life was saved by God in 1 Samuel 19, 11 to 17, chapter 23, verse 26 to 29, chapter 24, verse 4 to 7, and 2 Samuel chapter 22, verse 1. And finally, Yeshua. Yeshua's life was preserved, as we read in Matthew chapter 2, verse 13 to 20, so that he could be anointed as the Messiah and die for our sins. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I believe every believer should celebrate and acknowledge Hanukkah. It is a fun holiday. We can see Yeshua within the traditions that are there. And also it is the preserving of the Jewish people so that the line, the Messiah, could come through. Because if they were all eliminated, how could the Messiah come? So this winter coming up, I highly encourage you all to celebrate Hanukkah, acknowledge Yeshua and the people that Yeshua came through to ultimately die for everyone and your sins. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Shalom.